Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're gonna talk about Fujifilm X-H2S. So let's dive right into it. Now this super complicated name X-H2S, it's a flagship from Fuji. Now this flagship is specifically targeted on video, and there is a rumor that there will be a next flagship that will be focused on stills. This will be like basically video boy, and that will be like high resolution stills boy, like how you have R series in Sony, which has like 60 megapixel, and then you have S series which is like only 12 megapixel, but it has very good video functions. So same thing here. Now this puppy is a bit expensive for APS-C. It's around $2,500, so some serious chunk of change, and 1.8 lakh rupees is expected price in India. Now it could change by the time it comes in India, may go expensive, may go cheaper, but that's the best case I have. Now this puppy is 26 megapixel. Now that itself is not huge. However, the fact it is stacked BSI sensor is very huge, because at this point in time, flagships, that's a flagship sensor technology. Only few camera has stacked plus BSI, because it is a complex technology to implement and expensive also. And that's why like Canon's newest APS-C lineup, they have the cheapest sensor that does not have BSI, does not have stacked sensor. It is very expensive, and they are using X processor 5 flagship chip. Again, flagship from their end. There is no way to compare basically processor 5 versus Digix X. I can't compare them because, well, again, they are not something that I can put on a motherboard and test. So it is a video centric system, and it does have dual card slot, so meaning it can be served as a proper professional photography tool and videography tool if you want to. So this is the boy. Now, what about video? Now, the first thing, the biggest major change happened is no recording limit. And I'm genuinely surprised at Sony now, given the fact that how quickly, after the law was revoked, how quickly Sony started to just unlock everything. It's just like, don't think about it, just unlock the damn thing. If it overheats. It's like, just unlock the damn thing. That's awesome. That's really good. No recording limit. That's really good. And it has ProRes. At this point in time, half of you are just like, shut up and take my money. I don't care about anything. Just shut up and take my money. But be mindful, it does require CFast Express. It cannot you do basically ProRes on SD cards. Now it can do 422 10-bit, which is very good, and raw HDMI output is possible if you have certain external capture systems. Not every capture system can do that, but there are certain capture systems which will allow you to get raw capture from this camera. Now it can also do what we call open gate recording. Now that's not something very familiar to us guys, but they are very common thing for cinematographer guy, meaning it simply does full sensor output, meaning generally your sensor will never be 16:9 unless there are some specific reasons. Most sensors are not 16:9, they are like what we call 3:2 ratio, almost square. Now if you have 3:2 sensor, that means you are top and bottom, you are throwing it away, you are not capturing detail from there even though it's active. So open gate simply means it's gonna capture everything. Now you might be like, why? Again, it's cinematography kind of thing. It allows you to have a bit more vertical room in scenes. It may allow you to crop it down. If you are doing vertical video, that is also far more desirable in some scenarios. That's up to you. But again, it's a tool for cinematographers, like, shut up and take my money. But for everybody else, it's like, is it really that important? So it can go up to 6.2K resolution. So if you want the highest quality video output that this puppy can provide, that's the option. Now be mindful, it's limited to 30 FPS. It cannot go more than that. Processor will go melt. And the basically bit rate can achieve around 2754 megabits per second. That's huge. That's like 350 megabytes per second. That's why you need CFast Express. So it is significant chunk of bit rate that you can achieve. Now if you are letting go of basically 6.2K and open gate, you can achieve 4K with no crops and ProRes. And if you let go of ProRes, you can achieve 120 FPS and 4K without any significant crop. So that's awesome. And it has mic input, which the older versions also had, but they removed headphone port by utilizing USB-C port, which was stupid. Now thankfully they have fixed it, and both of them have their independent door, basically exactly like how my camera has. But problem is my camera is bottom, so when I flip out the screen, the headphone port blocks basically some part of the monitor. It's not a good design, but this one is a latest system, so it has better design. Full size HDMI. Canon, listen from this. Like, this is a tiny camera body. Somehow they can fit a giant ass HDMI port. It's like, I genuinely don't get it. This is like, other than pissing off the customer, there is no reason to use micro HDMI, because yes, there are very few manufacturers who actually uses micro HDMI. Like, you buy TV, what they have, full size ports. You buy AV receivers, they have full size port. You buy graphics card, they have full size port. You buy mobile phone, they don't have HDMI port. There was a time where they started to introduce micro HDMI, like Nokia had that, but like they faded away. So reality is there are very few places, unless recent Raspberry Pi. Other than that, almost everything has full size. Full size ports are cheaper per piece wise. So why the heck Canon is like, let's F the customer? It's like genuinely peaceful. And be mindful, the older Canons actually had mini rather than micro. Mini is like bit more robust, bit more likely to survive, but micro is like you touch it a little bit, it bets. And like again, Sony was also guilty of that, but they fixed it. So I'm very happy. The industry is going in good direction. You do not have to buy fancy cable unnecessarily. If your cable breaks, there is a very good chance you will have a spare cable laying around. That's awesome. That's good. GG. And it also has fan for hot climate. Now you have to understand this. Many people have commented, or maybe one or two people who are cycling commenting. It's like they are having overheating issue with Sony A7 Mark IV. Even though the whole industry is like, A7 Mark IV does not overheat. You have to understand the climate. Now climate could change inside a country also, because I went to Delhi, and Delhi is known for being hot, as in like hot. And I'm saying it was hot. I was there in March and it was hot. Then recently I had to be in Ahmedabad. And that's a whole different level of hot. Like I did not knew, like, there is this hot, and then there is Ahmedabad level hot. And most people are telling me, come to Rajasthan, that's a whole another level of hot. So there is a very good chance that because of the climate, your camera is just like, I can't take this. Now, Fuji did all their testing at around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. That's good for Western Hemisphere, but really not good for Equatorial Hemisphere, or the band, Equatorial band. So they know for a fact that this sort of camera can come to India and be like, you know what, some places in India, awesome, GG. But in other places, it's like, bro, this does not work. It just overheats too much. So the only solution at that point in time is active cooling. So they have created a system, but be mindful, it's expensive, $200. They're like, why the heck it's so expensive? It's an integrated solution. It's not just a fan you are plonking on. It's a fan that can screw on. The bolts screw onto the chassis itself, and there is an electrical communication built into the camera body itself. So there is an electrical contact also. So you do not have to worry about battery charging. You do not have to worry about speed control. Everything is integrated. So it's a first party solution. So that and Fuji's testing is like, this puppy with the fan should work continuously unless you run out of power in 40 degrees Celsius. And 40 degrees Celsius is like, at that point in time, I can trust this puppy to work in Indian environment. But be mindful, you have to buy that. Otherwise, like, don't be surprised if you're like, hey, nobody is like showing overheating issue. There is a part of climate also. So that's one thing. So be mindful. It does have one C fast express slot, one mic, one normal SD UHS2 slot. Now, what are the improvements in this? Well, reality is Fuji has the same issue as the Panasonic. They're good, but they're not what we call close your eyes and trust the equipment. They're not that good. So they focused really hard on IBIS, which is Sony's biggest weak link. And they have made some very good, bold claims. And people are like, what, it's good. When it works, it's really good, especially for stills. It's like, shut up and take my money. It's really good. Now, is it as good as Canon's IBIS? Not really. But like it's good. Now, who has better than Canon? It's Panasonic. So they did their best. The IBIS is really big deal for them. And in terms of autofocus, they tried their ass off to make sure the autofocus is up to the mark. And this time the autofocus algorithm is complex enough that it has subject and eye tracking as an option, meaning you can choose bird, you can choose sports, you can choose a subject, human, eye, all that. So it has a lot of flexing room. Basically, you can select it. Now, because of the S, it's supposed to be speed, it can go up to 40 FPS burst. Now, be mindful, I have specified in time and time again, don't focus on that 40 FPS or 30 FPS. It does not mean anything if it does not have good enough hit rate. And everybody who's testing it, like, be mindful, everybody who have tested it right now is just pre-production unit, but because autofocus is a core protocol that you develop on day one, I'm pretty sure that part is already settled. It's not good. Like, it's good, but as in like you will still have very high miss rates, meaning you have to go through a lot of photos and if the subject is moving. But be mindful, in some scenario that may not be an issue. For example, let's say a cricket photographer, the batsman is the primary focus. Most of the time batsman is in a fixed location. So even if you have a telephoto lens, from a lens point of view, it's fixed. The character may have a lot of motion, but the character will barely move in like few feet. Not even a few feet. So like the bat is here, like everything is fixed. So in those sort of scenarios, this 40 FPS will give you amazing result. But if you have something scenario, let's say a character running towards you, or something complex like kabaddi, or where you have characters running in all 2 dimensions, then you can have a autofocus will not keep up. So be mindful. Now they have learned from Sony's mistake that when you make autofocus very complicated, it takes a time from a complicated autofocus to be shut your mouth and just trust the equipment. It takes a time. So how do you do in between when you have developed a very amazing autofocus, but you can't trust it? Basically, it does not know what to do, and to like an equipment that's like close your eyes and rely on this. So you give what we call autofocus tuning, meaning how do you want your autofocus to work? Meaning in some scenario you want, hey, I want my damn autofocus to be sticky. I can afford to be slow, but I need that to be sticky. In some scenarios, because of the dynamic scenario, bro, go hunt. I don't give a damn how many missed shots I have, but because of the random nature, I do need like some random snaps. So in those sort of things, you want to tweak that system, and this camera will allow you to tweak it. You can spend time, you can spend a few days into working into it, and then have a camera that works really well for you. That's a really clever way of bridging until they have a autofocus system that is on par or better than Canon and Sony. So it can do good sports and wildlife. Be mindful. And Fuji is now releasing next generations of telephoto lenses, which are like really good with in terms of motor also. Because if you use very old Fuji lenses, they did not have motor on the lenses that are powerful enough to do fast enough autofocus acquisition. So lenses also play a very crucial role. So do not expect like I'm gonna use 10 years ago telephoto lens which has a crappy motor. Yeah, the motor will give out before autofocus system fails. So there are some significant improvement on this puppy. So should you buy it or not? Well, it's a great for Fuji ecosystem. Now, ecosystem is also important, especially if you are working in a teams. For example, in Indian wedding scenarios, many times we have teams. Basically, there will be 2-3 photographers, each taking care of different scenario. In those sort of scenario, ecosystem matters a lot, because you will have one person, video is that job. There will be one person who steals his job, another person whose job would be like, just candid photography. So you could have a scenario like that. In those sort of scenarios, Sony is really good because A, they use the same battery amongst almost all their full frames, and they have dedicated stills camera, dedicated high resolution camera, dedicated video camera, so they can all share the ecosystem. Lens will be intercompatible, everything will work just fine. So that's why it's a really good addition to ecosystem. So if you could have a scenario where it's like one buddy is using Fuji's upcoming high resolution camera that is for stills, and this puppy for video, that would be awesome. If they both use same battery, that would be GG. So that's a really good addition. And for many people, the fact that it has inbuilt ProRes, they will say, shut up, take my money, I don't care about anything else. That's just there. Right there, they lost it. It's like, just, oh, it has inbuilt ProRes, done. Shut up and take my money. Because there are other cameras that can do inbuilt ProRes, but they are idiotically expensive. So that is very important. Low rolling shutter. Sony has a really horrible rolling shutter, but again, it's not fair to compete because it's a full frame equipment. But if you compare the rolling shutter of R7 released recently, it's almost a bit better, not too much better. Do not expect to be like, whoa, it's not a global shutter, but it's like, it's good. So for many people, just these two things, it's like, shut up and take my money. So, and if you are a Fuji owner and you are already using Fuji for video, this is a very good addition. Now be mindful before you jump into the system, especially if you are new to this. Check the price of CFast Express cards. They are expensive AF, even as small as 64 gigabytes capacity. They are expensive. Be mindful, double check it, be thorough about it. Don't be like, I'm gonna use just UHS2 card slots that are awesome. It works with most scenario, but you will not get ProRes. So be mindful, be thorough, check it. And what about autofocus? Now, on paper, almost, Sony and Canon both will feel like, oh, they are so outdated and all that. But here's the deal. Both of them have an autofocus that has much higher hit rate, what we call as 95 percentile hit rate. While your Fuji, at best days, they are like, 80 percentile or 85 percentile on a really good day. So that does translate into you having a bit more issues with things. Now, again, for more than enough people, it's more than good enough. Especially if you're coming from a very old camera, or this is your first camera, you will not notice it. But for people who had the luxury of like, Sony, Canon, and Fuji, they'll be like, I get it why Sony and Canon is like, leading in terms of market sales. So that is one thing you have to understand. And R7 is a far better option in APS-C for more people, meaning it's far more balanced. It's far more, I just give you the camera, you go YOLO on it. It's very good for those sort of people. Fuji is not really good, especially in this, because they went a bit overboard and they have way too many options, meaning bitrate is available even with FPS counter, which should not be there, because if you have 30 FPS, the bitrate is X. If you go to 60 FPS, it must become 2X, otherwise you are compromising quality. So that option should not be there. There are some things that you have to remove, controls you have to remove, or you bury it so down that is like, unless you really want to do or know what you are doing, you do not go to tamper with that sort of setting. But in this scenario, Fuji is like, just go to Fuji's website. I have just done it for this video. Go to specification, just scroll down, see the video section. It has way too many options. It will freak you out. It's like it has way too many options on top of option. More option is good, but too many options just creates chaos. So for many people, for starting people, it's not a very comfortable set. Even if you can afford it, it's not very comfortable. And R7 is far more cost effective, especially with Canon's giant lens ecosystem. Yeah, basically you have to buy a mount, adapter mount, and then you just use a EF lens. And so R7 is far more, balanced. So if you are in Fuji ecosystem, that's it. And if you are in a scenario where it's like, dude, this is my first camera and I need ProRes and I need low rolling shutter, I can deal with autofocus, because again, be mindful, most of the movies are shot in manual focus. So if you're really going into that pro industry, just pay attention to the cost card prices, and if you can afford the card price, go YOLO on it. And what about Sony A7 Mark IV? Because be mindful, it's cheaper. Now A7 Mark IV does have something to offer. First, full frame. Now like, oh, full frame does not matter. It does matter. There is a very good reason why, RE, Red, every giant camera company that can do it, making huge and even huger sensor. For example, Endgame, Google, what sensor was used for shooting Endgame? 65mm. So there is a reason. There is something inherent to it. If you have a good lens and a giant sensor, output is, I get it. Why people pay for that. So that alone is something that you cannot fake, cannot trick, unless you have like, for full frame you have to buy f2.8 lens, and for APS-C you have to buy f1.5 lens. Good luck with that. They are very expensive, very big and heavy. At that point in time, it's like, dude, why the heck I don't use just full frame? And availability is also a very critical thing. Many of the people live in big cities who are like, I see 5-6 Fujifilm shops, so I think like, Fuji is common thing. It's not available everywhere in India. And if that's an issue, you have to be mindful of that. You have to be aware of that. It's like, hey, I'm buying this. Can I buy batteries for it? Can I buy accessories for it? Can I get it repaired? Can I get it serviced? How many options do I have? How many places can I go? Those things are important deal that you have to think about. If those are important, there is a good reason you have to stick to either Canon or Sony. So that is one thing. So Sony does have full frame advantage, and it does have better autofocus. So hit rate wise, it will be higher. Now, Sony did cripple a lot of this, but it does have one feature that's like, for many streamers, they will be like, shut up, take my money. It has USB-C video out, which goes up to Full HD 60 FPS. Full HD 60 fps. Now be mindful, there are very few streaming platform that allows you to stream 4K, especially Twitch does not let you to do that. So Full HD 60 fps from a full frame camera, it's like, shut up, take my money, I don't want to deal with anything. So there is some serious advantage with this puppy, and given the fact it's cheaper and does have Sigma lenses, does have Tamron lenses, which are available, not just like, you have to go to USA or export those lenses. So there are some options there that may be desirable. For APS-C, this will be desirable. Unless you need this specific thing, Fuji may not be the perfect set. If you are in the Fuji ecosystem, GG. So this was my presentation on Fuji's current, flagship. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.